In this video, we are going to learn about default props of a React component, which means that we can see that there is a greeting component and currently the class component is being used where the name is equal to Alex prop is being passed. So you can see that obviously hello Alex will be printed. However, what happens when I don't pass this prop? You can see that nothing is printed, right? What if my requirement is that if I don't pass something, then also by default some property names should be assigned. For that, there is a way called default props, which means that you can take the class name, so in this case greeting dot, and there is a particular name for it which is default props, and then you can assign an object to it. You cannot change this name to something else. This is something which is special for a class component, where now if you put something, so name props.name was the thing, right? Now if I put props.name is equal to, let's say, Alex, right? Then what is happening is that if you don't pass anything, so right now you can see that if I don't pass anything, then by default Alex will be taken. You can see by default Alex is taken. But if you pass something, so if I pass some different thing, then that thing is taken, right? So even if you don't pass anything, then now we can see that a default behavior is there, that a particular name is by default being used, which can be defined here. Now this is a special property which can be available on a class component. What do you think will happen if I do the same thing? Can I do the same thing on a functional component? So let's try to do the same thing on a functional component. In a functional component, if I don't pass anything, then right now obviously nothing is printed because I did not do anything. Let's try doing the same thing what we did earlier in the class component. So here let's try to here also have let's say name Alex, right? Which means that right now I have not passed anything here, right, in the greeting component, and I'm using a function component. Is this working? We can see that it is working, right? And if I pass something, then you can see this is the, so essentially this is also working, right? But just there is a warning here that please don't use this method. This is sort of obsolete, deprecated, and this will be removed in some of the later versions of React. It might be removed, right? You can see that in one of the tweets, this guy Dan Abramov, who is one of the main guys in the React core team, he mentions in one of his tweets that the default props on functions will eventually be deprecated, which means that right now it works, but don't rely in your code base for this thing. So if I don't want to rely on this, then what should be a better way? A better way should be using default parameters, right? So what you can do is that here, instead of using props directly, you can restructure it and then use something like this. That is fine. Now as long as you're not using something, then what is happening is that this thing is like what? This thing is basically undefined, right? You can see that it is undefined, that's why it is not printed. However, it can be assigned a default value, like something like this. So this is a special syntax where inside function arguments, if you destructure like this, then this value can be reassigned if name is not already given in the object prop in the argument object which is passed in this function, right? So for example, right now you'll see that this thing is working. Right now this thing is working because this Alex is assigned because I have not passed anything with name value. If I use the name value here and I pass something, so let's say name is equal to Bob, then you'll see that Bob is being used rather than Alex. So this is the way in which the same thing, something like this, can be simulated like this. Don't use default props here, right? And this is a new syntax in ES6, so very much this is going to be standard going forward. So this will work, always work going forward, right? So there's no harm, and in fact there's no shortfall in using this at all. Okay, so yeah, default props and default parameters, like how to use just inside React components if some property is not passed. So that's what we learned in this video. See you in the next one.